I'm recording this intro just hours after I got home from my first basketball practice coaching my new team. Now, if my voice sounds a little bit different, it's because, well, I'm a coach. What can I tell you? Ball is life. Now, by now, you know how much I love basketball. It's been a part of my entire life, and Lord willing, it'll be a part of the rest of my life too. Over the years, I've been able to talk hoops with the best of them, and that is from the GOAT, Diana Taurasi, to Hall of Fame referee Dick Bavetta. Whenever I've been fortunate enough to pick the brains of brilliant basketball minds, I do my absolute best to soak up all the info I can get and bring it back to my athletes. Today's conversation is certainly no exception. I've been following Jerica Williams' career for years. She's a Hall of Fame athlete, an award-winning coach, a powerhouse in business, and a game changer in her community. From earning a full basketball scholarship to UCLA to making history as the only active female coach in Division I men's basketball in the 2023-24 season, her journey is a masterclass in resilience, leadership, and breaking barriers. Now, beyond the court, she's the founder of Her Power Productions, which is a platform dedicated to amplifying the voices of young women. I'm telling you, when you get a chance, please go visit her website and watch all of her videos. The storytelling is top notch and the production value is genuinely insane. It's so good. Now, for a million reasons, I was honored to connect and really just talk to Jerica, and I'm thrilled to bring you this conversation. So thank you for being here for another episode of Courtside Forever, because as parents, we've got the best seats in the house. Let's enjoy it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited for this conversation. We have an athlete, a coach, a mother, a storyteller, and the founder of Her Power Productions. Jerica Williams, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I as I mentioned in the message, I was thrilled to get you on this podcast because I've been such a fan of yours for years. I don't even know how long. I don't know if I can go on LinkedIn and see how long you've been following this person. But you were somebody who I've been following on LinkedIn specifically for years, just in terms of your journey as a coach and as a player, and as a mom. Like I've always felt like you've had just such a unique story, and it totally makes sense why you're a storyteller, because just in terms of what I see on LinkedIn, you're phenomenal at it and you're so good at what you do. So again, thank you so much for coming on Courtside Forever.
Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. It's good to know that what I put out there lands well. That's reassuring.
It definitely does, and I know I'm not the only one. And you've had such an impact everywhere you've gone. So you've been involved in every aspect of basketball, from playing to coaching, and certainly not just in high school and dabbling in coaching here and there, but in high school, you helped lead your team to 4 straight CIF championships, which, for those who don't know, is the California State Championships for basketball. You won 3 in a row, which is insane. You also earned a full ride scholarship to UCLA before graduating from San Diego State University. And not to mention, last year, you were the only active female coach in Division I men's basketball, coaching at the University of Detroit Mercy. So my first question for you is, when did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
Yeah. It's so funny, like hearing my basketball journey. You know,
Hopefully that's accurate. I try to do my homework before I talk to guests.
Clear up some of the high school stuff, but that's pretty much it, right? Like I actually lost my senior year in high school. I missed the game-winning shot, but it was we went 4 times. And not a lot of people have done that. So still, I can't watch that game. I have not watched that game since I missed that shot, but it's fine.
Understandable.
I fell in love with basketball on accident, and that's why it's so ironic. My friend, she didn't want to be the only girl. I think I was in 5th grade. I was an athlete. I played baseball. I did like the kickball. Like I was all over the place in terms of being an athlete, but basketball was not a thing. And my friend didn't want to be the only girl in this free throw shooting contest. And so I was like, fine. And I threw it up there and it went in off the backboard like 2 out of 5 times or something. And it was enough to go to the next round. And this is the story that I always tell around basketball.
Yeah.
Get to regionals for this, free throw shooting contest. And I make like 1 out of 12. Like I said, I've never, like, shooting a basketball was brand new. And my dad pulls me outside. You get 2 rounds of shooting 12 shots, and my dad pulls me outside and was like, "Do you want to win?" I was like, "Absolutely." I was a winner. Always been a winner. So I
Yeah.
said yes, and he said, "Put your foot right here. Just do like this with your wrist." And I ended up making 11 out of 12 the next round.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. And so from there on out, I knew it was what I wanted to do, at least right in front of me. Back then there wasn't, all these girls, women's basketball players on TV a bunch.
Yeah.
I just knew that I wanted to play the game. I wanted to get really good at it, and I was blessed with really good coaches right out of the gate. And I threw myself into playing with all boys at the rec center, and ended up winning MVP over all the boys pretty quickly. And
There
so
you go.
things escalated pretty quick, but that was the beginning of basketball for me.
I love it. That was the beginning, and you have been doing it now for quite some time. And going to high school, obviously, as we mentioned, you did go to 4 straight championship games, winning
Yeah.
3 in a row. We definitely don't have to talk about that last one. I completely understand where you're coming from. But can you explain what made your high school, Mount Miguel, such a powerhouse, and what did your coach do to build that program?
That's such a great question. Coach Robbie Sandoval really had a vision. He was young. He was a young coach. We're all from the inner city, and I think what he did well that we really don't see now, it was all local kids. We were all in the neighborhood. If we needed to, we could all walk to our high school,
I love
and
that.
he got us in there really young. So we had actually the team that I had won the 3 with. We had been playing together since we were in 6th grade.
Oh,
So we
wow.
were playing, yeah, and we were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders playing up on JV, kind of like back when you could do that. We were practicing with the varsity, and
Hmm.
so by the time we got to varsity, it was like, we're full speed ahead. And he had done a good job of laying that foundation. So the year before I got there, they had went to their first CIF championship game but didn't win. And then my freshman year, I was the only freshman on varsity that year, but my freshman year was the year it all, like the foundation that he laid, it all took off from there. And I think that I reference this quote a lot. It's a quote from a Michigan football coach, and he said, "If you stay, you'll be champions."
Mm.
And that's what Coach Rob did. He kept us together. We didn't take transfers. We all were like sisters. We all lived in the same neighborhood. We all had similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
We all came from, and this was rare, we all came from 2-parent homes.
Mm.
And it was something my mom pointed out that I was like, oh my, so the foundation was so solid. And the
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is that he set really high standards. We never went in like, hey, we're going to win this championship game. Like it wasn't, we're going to make it to this, whatever. It wasn't that. It was, you come in, you win the moment, you win what is right in front of you. You're
Hmm.
10 minutes early to every practice. Your jersey is tucked in. Defense is first, and he never budged. And we all
Hmm.
bought in, and the rest is history. And we really did build a dynasty.
I love it. I love it. Now, you mentioned that defense comes first, and I think I read somewhere that your freshman year, were you defensive player of the year? Is that accurate?
Probably. Yeah, no, I
Okay.
was really good defensive. I was a really good defensive player. My freshman year, I won all the freshman award, like rookie of the year and
Hmm.
the whole. I think I there was a newspaper clipping. I averaged like 8 steals a game at one point in my career.
Mm.
So it took a lot of pride in defense, and that really carried over to my coaching.
I love that. That is so cool. I tell my athletes all the time, and I coach rec league, and I coach my daughter and her team, and she plays co-ed as well. But I tell them all the time, like, if you want to stay on the court, defense
Yeah.
is where it's at, especially at the young age, because like kids are missing like, I don't know, 80-90% of their shots. So I'm like, if you want to make it just really difficult, if you want to have a great game, just start on defense. Like the
Everyone
effort.
play defense. That's
Yes.
the difference. Not everyone can score. Not
Hmm.
everyone can dribble. Not everyone can pass. Those are like unique, kind of nuanced skill sets that you really have to develop. But for the most part, everyone can play defense. So,
Hmm.
agree. Great advice.
Yeah, I know. I always tell my kids within the first week, because we get new teams like every 2 months, and I tell them the reason I love defense is because I was a terrible shooter. Even though Reggie Miller was my favorite player, like I wasn't a great shooter, but I could always play defense, and that's what kept me on the court. So I love that that was your calling card and your coach's calling card. And obviously, speaking of your coach, I mean, like, obviously from Mount Miguel, and we'll get into UCLA and San Diego State, but like you've been a part of some really historic programs. So at what point did you say, I think I want to coach?
That's a good question. I don't know if I ever said I think I want to coach. I think I said basketball is what I know the most. What can I do to provide for my son right now? This is what I can do. And then and I was given the opportunity. So I started coaching my senior year of college. I had a newborn son.
Okay.
And he was born in October, and I moved back to San Diego to finish my last semester of college. And the basketball season just started, and Coach Rob, my former high school coach, was like, come be my assistant. So I was going to school and coaching at the same time. Oh, wow. And so I think it was like kind of survival, but then, oh, you're really good at it. Really good at it I was 23. So really good at it from my lens, because it was like I can offer my personal experience. I just got done playing. But what really intrigued me was like, I don't know the game from this lens. I don't know the game from the sideline, which is a totally different game. So that empowered me to stay involved in basketball, because I don't think as a player I ever reached my full potential. And so there was something about me staying, with my feet, keeping my feet wet in the game, but also to be the woman that I felt like I needed growing up, to be that for those girls who were at my high school. So I think a combination of those two things is what really was like, okay, let me coach. Let me do this.
For sure. For sure. And you've been doing it now for a while, and obviously you're good at it. And I know that you are doing work with the Positive Coaching Alliance, which, for those who are unaware, it's a nonprofit dedicated to youth and sports. And I know sometimes youth sports gets a bad rap, which at times is warranted. So to you, what does it mean to be a positive coach, and what do you think the kids are looking for in sports?
That's a good question. I think to be a positive coach, and we talk about this at PCA, is being a quality coach, right? And because a positive and I think it's always like, how are you defining quality, right? And I think I was challenged to come up with this. It's a combination, for me, a quality coach is a combination of having empathy and knowledge of the game. And so the fact that I feel like I know that I'm very empathetic just as a human. It made me I was able to really connect to my players. And I think that really good coaches are able to connect. And that's why we don't see a lot of quality coaches, because they're that ability to empathize, I feel like, is something that's missing. And then, like I said, the other part is you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. And I think that was where Noelle Quinn was a senior on my UCLA team when I was a freshman, and she's now the head coach.
Seattle Storm?
Seattle Storm, yep.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so she was like my big sister at UCLA, and I just shared this on a coaching webinar that we went around. Our coach at the time, she went around the room and she said, what makes a champion? And so everyone is like, perseverance, hard work, all the kind of intangible things. And I mean, tangible, but intangible. And you get to Noelle and she goes, talent. And it's like, that is so true. Like, because you could literally you can have a whole bunch of baseball players that have never played the game that have work ethic and perseverance and determination, but they don't have the basketball skill set or acumen, right? So I think a quality coach, also, you have to possess, like, I went to probably 100 practices in the off season to learn. Like, I was spending twice or three times the amount of hours preparing my practice plan than we were actually doing practicing. So I put a lot of time into being a coach who like knew some stuff, and I
Yeah.
still only know, a fraction of what I can know. But I think that those are the things that make a good coach, make a quality coach.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm so glad that you said that and told that story. This past weekend, I know you and I are recording kind of mid-February, and my family and I just went to All-Star Weekend in San
Oh,
Francisco
nice.
and went to some of the events, and I got to sit in on a coaches meeting, which was so much fun. And Mark Dagnall, OKC's head coach, was there. Brian Shaw, assistant coach for the Clippers, former assistant coach for the Pacers, which is why I was like, oh, that's so cool. And they're all there, and they had people who were kind of like helping explain some of the drills. And as I'm looking around, there are some people who just have it, and a lot
Yeah,
of these athletes were
agreed.
like 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". I'm like, oh my goodness. So I love, because when I talk to parents and they're like, how do I get my kid to do this? And part of me, I'm like, I mean, work ethic, yes, for sure. But like, if you want to continue to progress, some kids just have that talent, and there's very little that
It
like I
is
did
what it
to
is.
affect that. Like it,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
100%.
I will get the absolute most out of the kids I work with, but there are some kids who just have it, whether
Yeah.
that's a height or the talent or anything like that. So, you obviously in a lot of aspects, you have it. And when you graduated from San Diego State, I read that you carried your newborn son across the stage with you. And I know parenthood can deter some people from finishing their education, but it seems like it really fueled you. So my question for you is, how did motherhood impact your studies as a student?
That's another great question that hasn't been posed to me in that way. Because when I do tell this story, so I was a below average student. The reason
Mm,
why I had to come back and finish my last semester was because I was ineligible. The last semester that I went like as a
mm,
player
yeah.
didn't pass that last semester. And
Okay.
and then I went and I had my son. And the way that it works is if you are not in good standing, you only have 2 years to complete your degree after that. Otherwise, you have to start over. Um,
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
And so at least I don't know what it is now, but that's what
Yeah.
it was back then. And so when I came back, I only had a semester to finish.
Hmm.
And my son was 3 months old. And
Mm,
this moment he was born, I was like, I'm not gonna be a like non-college graduate after I got like this full ride. And like, what am I doing? So he
yeah.
just, I became a mom, and things become really clear. And I tell
Yeah.
people that like as a parent, people are like, oh, it's so hard, or I'm not ready, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, you don't get more blurry when you have children. You become very clear. You become very
Hmm.
clear. And so I buckled down, and I actually had the best semester I ever had in my entire collegiate career while having
Yeah.
a newborn. And I have like pictures of him like crawling on my computer and me like holding him, and he was I had to take him to classes with me because I didn't have a babysitter. Like, like it
Hmm.
was a whole, oh my goodness, it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I think being a parent definitely motive, because obviously now you're not just doing it for yourself, right? You're like, what kind of future am I going to at least start to build for this person who I'm now responsible for? So
Hmm.
absolutely it fueled me 100%.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that fuel you can see, and I can certainly see in every aspect of your work. And I know we talked about it a little bit, but on your website, you say that I lead with authenticity, compassion, and the understanding that everyone has greatness within. They just need help to unlock it. Now, you've worked with athletes, you've worked with business people. You were the 2017 Businesswoman of the Year in San Diego. But in terms of unlocking your own greatness, can you give me an example or maybe a time that you had to unlock your own greatness?
Yeah, that was probably one.
Hmm.
Uh, being a mother
Yeah.
and finishing school and having to find a way,
Yeah.
right? Because I also had to pay for his daycare. There were things that I had to just buckle down and do.
For sure.
That prior to having my son, I don't know if I had the strength and the vision and the wherewithal to do those things.
Mm.
I would also say that I'll give you a couple, but would be starting my own business. So
For
fun
sure.
story. It was not fun in the moment, but it's fun now.
It's fun to look back on.
Yeah, fun to look back on. Working at a financial, company, and did not like what I was doing. I had kind of this aha moment that I think I was making $15 an hour. So I didn't like what I was doing. I was like, $15 an hour. I'm like, I could find $15 an hour in the couch. That's how I felt. Like I
Yeah.
literally felt that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I factor in the amount of time I wake up, commute, take my son to daycare, pick him up, come, work, whatever, it's like 10 hours a day. I'm like, if I work 10 hours a day, like doing the stuff that I want to do, doing the stuff that I'm good at, I'm confident I can make at least $15 an hour before taxes, right? So
Yes.
I walked into my, boss's office, and she was super supportive. She really planted a seed. And she was like, look, you can work here, but it's obvious that you're passionate somewhere else. I feel like I'm going to turn on the TV one day and see you. And so she lit a fire in me. And I think that I had to be able to see in myself something greater than what was right in front of me. And it took a real leap of faith. And I don't go out and preach, hey, quit your day job, right?
Yeah.
Like without a plan. I didn't really have a plan. I just had a fire in me that I couldn't put out, and I did that, and I launched a consultancy firm that allowed me to work with professional athletes and nonprofit organizations and build my own like profitable business that is still going. So that was definitely a moment where I was like, wow, I really had to see something in myself, that I had to see greatness in myself in order to do that. And then kind of bringing, that's like a business example, and then bringing back to the basketball side, my first year as a head coach. So I was an assistant at Cal State Northridge, and being an assistant at that level, I was aware like, hey, I think I'm ready to be a head coach. Like I know it's going to require me to reach, which to me is that sweet spot, right? Like that, hey, it's going to I'm equipped enough, but it's still going to require me to reach. Like that's like that sweet spot that you want to be. And that was where I was in terms of wanting to be a head coach. And I never had like my own program before or anything like that, but I knew that I had the resources, the knowledge, the wherewithal, and whatever I didn't have, I could figure out. And I got the head coaching job at Detroit Country Day and acquired a almost winless organization. And we ended up, that year, that my first year as a head coach, we ended up going to the Final Four and shocked everybody.
Yes.
But that was a moment in basketball where I was like, are you good enough to be a head coach? Are you, all this stuff that you preach and lead with and say that you know about culture? Because there's the 12 inches from a head coaching seat to an assistant coaching seat is a long way. That's a long way. And so that was definitely a moment I had to see greatness in myself, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Who supported you throughout that journey? Like, did you have mentors? Did you have other coaches, former players who you could lean on in order to get that job done?
Yeah, I would say like my family has always been my biggest supporters. Like my parents, there's nothing that I'm not capable of is my parents, how they've raised me. In terms of basketball supporters, honestly, too many to name. And I think I've been very intentional ever since I was a child to build a really strong network. I think that's my superpower is being able to connect with people. And so I think there were people who I met along the way. There were people who I knew from the past, but I don't think there was any like one specific person or two specific people that helped me in coaching in that moment. I think it was just a culmination of a whole bunch of different people who were part of my journey along the way. I have been blessed to be around a lot of brilliant basketball minds, and I feel like I've been able to be a intersection of all of them.
Yeah, that is so cool. And I can see the community in everything that you do. And again, you are such a great storyteller. And speaking of, recently you started Her Power Productions, which is a 501c3 public awareness campaign project where your mission is to amplify the voices of girls and young women ages 11 to 26. Now, in episode 1, which I absolutely loved, you talked to 11-year-old Charlie Jane. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Yeah, and Charlie, she's a pianist, a singer, and a dancer who I almost positive is going to be on Broadway one day, which I think she mentions. You know, she has that belief. I'm telling you, I walked away from that video thinking like, yeah, like, all right, Charlie, like 11-year-old, like, go get it. I feel motivated. You know, she obviously seems like a great kid. You know, so my question for you is, what motivated you to create Her Power Productions?
Yeah. It was a God thing. I can't even, I think I know I can bring it back to like the human side, but I was off of Instagram for 8 years. And when I came back in September, I got back on, and it was a call to get back on. It was very much an intentional, you know, okay, because God wanted me to get off because I saw how comparison was stealing my joy, my everything. Yeah. And that's not, I'm not like anti-social media person, right? But I get the different pieces.
No, you're spot on.
Yeah. And so I was off, and it allowed me to, you know, go inward. It really allowed me to go inward so that when it was time to be more forward facing, that I would be communicating the right things to the audience that was listening. Right. And with more authenticity, it would not be performative. And that's a real humbling experience to be able to recognize that in yourself, that you need to be humbled and that you need to become more authentic. What you're putting out needs to be more authentic. So that's the transformation that happened with me over those 8 years. And so when I came back, obviously I had years of, I call it field research now, but I had years of interacting. I have years of interacting with these young girls and getting to know them and pulling out the best in them and them pulling out the best in me. And they have things to say. And when I was online, these same girls, so, you know, they follow me or I follow them, and I'm not hearing from them. I'm only seeing pictures and highlights, but I'm not hearing what they have to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, what they have to say, and felt like the call from God, was like, every little girl in the world wants to be heard, and they may not know how to say that. And I know that from firsthand experience being a former young woman and also coaching them day in and day out and being part of their lives on and off the court. I know they have something to say, and I know they want to be heard. And so it was like, well, let's just create it. And it's evolved into what it is now. It's been about 6 months, and it started off as an idea of kind of being something else. But the notion of let's record it, let's allow them to hear and see themselves, which is equally as powerful as someone else seeing them, if not more powerful. And then so I was like, you know what? I want to make a commitment to it. I want to be obedient to the calling, but I really want to make a commitment to it. And so I've committed to telling a story a week for the rest of 2025, which would equate to 47 stories since the beginning of February. So,
I'm telling you, the story, not only the stories are amazing, but like the production quality is
cinematic.
It really is. It really is. It's funny. I wrote a children's book a couple years ago, and one of my favorite things is when people like give me feedback. They're like, "Oh, it looks like a real book." I'm like, because it is. Like, it is a real book, but thank you. And obviously, like, I know you and I are just connecting, and I guess for real right now. And so when I saw the production quality, like, I was just blown away with your commitment to really not just telling the stories, but say, I'm going to do this the right way. Like, I'm telling you, for anybody who listens to this, like, I can't wait to share it, because I really think people are going to be blown away by the level of storytelling and the authenticity. Like, that is the through line. It's not like, you know, Charlie, tell me about this, tell me about that. Like, you let her kind of dictate like the motion and the movements and where to go. And it just feels beautiful and authentic. And I am such a fan of what you're doing.
Happy. Thank you. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. So now storytelling, obviously we've talked about that, and a big part of your story is motherhood. And we've mentioned your son, who's a football player and also just a couple minutes ago was dribbling right outside the room, which I love.
Goodness, 13 boys. Oh my God.
I know I got two girls, so I don't know. I mean, I used to be a boy, so like I get it. But recently on LinkedIn, you shared a story of how your son told you that he wanted to play in the Super Bowl, and I loved your response. And I love that you said in your post, "Can I give him the tools and resources? Yes. Can I support him? Of course. Can I do it for him? Nope. Can I want it more than him? Or can I want it more than him? Nope." Now, what advice do you have for parents out there when navigating their kids' athletic hopes and dreams?
Such a good conversation. To let go of their own hopes and dreams. And I say that, not let go of your own hopes and dreams that you had as an athlete.
Yeah.
I know firsthand now as a parent, you have hopes and dreams for your child. And I think that that's what you have to let go of. Where it's like, literally, this is their journey. And when I tell you this last year, Ryan, it has been a phase where I'm like, Lord, you are just telling me to let go. Like, I can't, it's like I have nothing to do with my son in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? In terms of his path, his journey. And I said that in the post, I can give you resources, I can guide you, but literally I cannot do any of it for you. And the more that I try, all we do is butt heads. I start to see you differently. You start to see me differently. And it doesn't make for a healthy mother, son, parent, child relationship. If I have this vision, the honest truth is, as parents, we have a vision for our children. However you want it to be, right? Like you can, it could be tangible. It could be like, oh, I know that they're going to go to college. I know that they're going to get good grades. I know that for the most part, we anticipate our children being pretty much perfect. The fact of the matter is, it's like, that's just not how it goes. So I think my main advice is to let go of your own hopes and dreams and vision around your child, and maybe it will allow you to listen to them better, hear them better, hear what their real gifts are, and probably be able to guide them and parent them a little bit better, because our job is to guide. Our job is not to do, period. Our job is to guide. And so that's what I even tell him now that he's 13. I can't even hold his hand anymore. When he was little, I could hold his hand. Like literally and figuratively, right? Now, your consequences are your own. Mommy cannot come in and save the day. Mommy cannot come in and be a champion for you. And I think I'll end it with this part is, I've done it already. And this is a transparent moment. I had a very unique mentality as a child. I was born with this innate intrinsic motivation factor, and fact of the matter is that's rare. Most people don't have that ability. Like, no one has to tell me to go out and work hard. No one has to tell me to get up and go do this because this will equate to a certain outcome. No one had to tell me that. And my parents even rave about it now. My son doesn't have that same thing. And so for me, and I had to do this as a coach too, you can't expect them to think like you, to be like you. You can't expect that. And I think that's a super, super hard detachment, especially with a personal relationship like a child-parent relationship, to be able to detach from anything. Me and my son shared a heartbeat. So to be able to detach from any of it takes work, but it's been so, and it's ongoing. So this work is not done, but I can tell that we're healthier because I'm giving him more space because it's going to happen anyway. It's his journey anyway. But between both of us, I think I have more space to be a parent, and he has more space to be a kid.
Oh, that is so good. It's so good. I am thrilled for the people who get to learn from you on a daily basis in terms of coaching, and your perspective is honestly really refreshing. It's not super prevalent in the world of sports and even in the world of parenting. There's a lot of folks out there who want it so bad for their kids, and I'll do anything to get my kids there. It's like
it's like what, like And I push back with parents, and parents come to me a lot, right? They
Yeah,
come to me a lot, and some of the time is because their daughter usually confides in me differently their than them.
for
Um,
sure.
and I think to your point of being a good storyteller, I think one of the reasons why I am is because I know how to ask like really in-depth questions, but the questions aren't scripted. They come from what you're giving me. And so that's what I feel like when parents are curious about, their child's future, how they can prepare them, et cetera, you really have to ask yourself like, what are you really wanting to prepare them for? Here we go. This is it. This is it right here.
Let's get it.
If and I've asked this question. You have two daughters?
I do. Yeah, 8 and 5.
Okay, so you have a little bit. But when they graduate from high school, what is like the one, maybe top two things you want them to go out in the world with? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to go out in the world with?
Oh, that is such a good question. I want them to go out into the world with empathy, and I want them to go out into the world with confidence.
And I would say that answer is probably like for little girls is the majority of what I hear. 0% of parents have said, I want my child to go out into the world with a college scholarship for a sport. 0%.
Yeah.
0%. You know what I mean? 100% say that they want them to go out into the world with some sort of character trait that will allow them to be the highest version of themselves in society, period, the end. So when we're talking about parenting them in sport, we got to keep that in mind. It's not, I want my child to, because that's not even what we want. Yeah. We don't really care that much about them, right? Maybe we want what sports can do. Can sports help her become confident? Absolutely. So then now we need to start paying more attention to how her confidence is operating while she's playing the sport and see how we can best position her to be confident when she's 18 years old and goes out into the world on her own. So those are the types of things that I like to give parents, but also where I like to give myself. Yeah. Where it's like, what do I want my son to possess? Who do I want my son to be? And how can I help him, have that?
Oh my goodness, I feel like I need to pay you for that advice. That was amazing. Amazing. This might be the only episode I ever do that's behind a paywall because like that and just give you all the money because that was, oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, it's so good because it's so true. Yeah. And I have to use it. One of the best advice I've gotten in the last couple weeks has been, Jerica, coach yourself. Coach yourself. And that's what it's like about parents. Stop coaching your kid. Coach yourself.
Yeah.
Coach yourself.
Oh. My goodness. Oh my goodness. I love that. Now, Jerica, at the end of each episode, I like to ask my guests about a fictional character from TV or movies or books, and I try to gear my questions towards you, obviously, as the guest. So you're a storyteller who's excelled in the world of basketball. So think of your favorite basketball movies, shows, you name it. And if you could tell one person's story, who would you tell?
I feel like Monica Wright is obviously the cliche one.
Cliche for a reason, it's good.
Do you know whose I would tell? Her arch nemesis in Love and Basketball.
Oh,
I would tell hers.
The senior when Monica was a freshman and oh, that is good.
Yeah, that's who I would tell because what was her life like for her to be so mean? To
be so mean
but there was something under there.
There was. And I'm trying to think of the timeline because she was 3 years older than Monica. Obviously, spoiler alert, this movie is like 30 years old, so I can't even say this. But, obviously Monica goes on to play in the WNBA, which started in 97. So, I would imagine her arch nemesis probably grew up where women's basketball wasn't necessarily as respected and appreciated. So that is a good one.
Space, and I think that's what women face, and is there's not space for everyone. And I think that was the tone in that locker room was like, never let a freshman take your spot. Like there's only 5 people that can play at a time. Like there's not room for me and you. There's not. And I think that's like the life lesson. It's like no matter what that was what I loved about my high school team it didn't matter who was playing how many minutes. There was none of that. Like everyone just loved being part of the team. But that's why I would love to tell her story and get her perspective on, like, because then she got injured, you know, and she like yeah, just like what her family life was like. She loved playing overseas. Monica didn't. You know, just like where she ended up, like what her high school career was like. Was she bullied, right? Like I would just be curious to know like who she was.
I love it. I put you on the spot with that question, gave you a very specific question, and you knocked it out of the park, which was incredible. And I'm not surprised because that is what you've done your entire career. So, Jerica, where can the people find you? Because I genuinely feel like everyone needs to read your work, see your videos. So where can the people find you?
Appreciate that. Herpower.life. It's probably the easiest. I'm Coach Jerica on Instagram, and then LinkedIn is Jerica Williams, but that's where it starts and ends for me. Not a ton of different places, but herpower.life is a great place to start.
It's a beautiful website too, honestly. Like I'd really recommend anybody checking it out. I was kind of going through it because I'm working on my website. I'm looking at yours. I'm like, oh, it's like just a beautifully done website. So kudos to you. Yeah, you know, I bet it is not easy to get it done, but you make it all look incredible. And like I mentioned earlier, like just the kids who work with you and the parents who work with you are so incredibly lucky, and I feel incredibly fortunate to have you as a guest on Courtside Forever. So Jerica, I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Great show, great questions, and looking forward to supporting you along the way.
Absolutely, likewise. Thank you to Jerica, and thank you for being here for another episode of Courtside Forever, where our goal is to ensure that parents enjoy the best seats in the house. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend or two, and feel free to reach out with any comments or questions. I'm your host, Ron Rucker, and I appreciate you being here. Take care.